If you're listening to this podcast, it's probably because a child you love and care for is differently wired. Are they also struggling in their current educational setting, seen only for what they're doing wrong while longing for positive relationships with peers and others? Envision a world where your child's unique abilities are not just recognized, but celebrated. A world where they can connect with others and their true potential is seen and appreciated. The Strength-Based Assessment Lab's mission is to build a world for your child just like that. Through its innovative approach, it aims to empower students, families, educators, and professionals to create positive, effective, and collaborative learning experiences. Be a part of shaping a brighter future for your child. Visit www.bgs.edu to learn more about what a strength-based assessment could mean for your family. That's bgs.edu. What do you think has worked the best for you? Because I'm sure you've noticed vacations are different for you now too. What has helped you the most?
I think that all the planning, it's very helpful to know what's going to happen.
Why is that so helpful for you?
I just like knowing what's going to happen because it means I can prepare for it ahead of time. I can set all my expectations and not be wrong.
Welcome to the Tilt Parenting Podcast, a podcast featuring interviews and conversations aimed at inspiring, informing, and supporting parents raising differently wired kids. I'm your host, Debbie Reber, and today's episode features another conversation with my 11-year-old son, Asher. We know that a lot of families are traveling this summer and going on holidays, whether to the beach, camping, national parks, trips abroad. And we also know that vacations can be equal parts awesome and difficult for families with differently wired kids. So today, Asher and I are going to tell you about the many different strategies we've tried and tweaked over the years to help make our vacations go more smoothly. Of course, life is life, and we're not looking for happily ever after here, but we have come up with some strategies that have absolutely allowed our family to not only enjoy the vacations much more than before, but also grow closer together in the process. So we're going to get into that in just a moment. To learn more about this podcast and Tilt, the revolution for parents raising atypical kids, visit www.tiltparenting.com. My husband and I love to travel. It's one of our favorite things to do. And when my husband's work asked us to move abroad for an indefinite amount of time, we leapt at the opportunity because we knew it meant we'd get to travel a ton and explore Europe, a place we really hadn't spent much time in before moving to Amsterdam 3 years ago. We did travel a fair bit in the U.S. when Asher was younger, but the majority of these trips were either to Pennsylvania and Maryland to see my family or California and Oregon to visit Darren's family, scattered with a few family vacations to places like Orlando, Phoenix, New York, and the Jersey Shore. But we realized pretty early on that we had a problem, and maybe it's a problem you've experienced too. See, while we loved to travel, it didn't necessarily bring out the best in Asher. In fact, it often ratcheted up the intensity level from highly discombobulating to flat-out catastrophic. New routines, busier schedules, strange beds, different foods. For a highly inflexible little person with sensory issues, vacations were the perfect storm. It was the fall before we moved that I had my first aha moment about the Asher vacation conundrum. So I actually wanted to start by talking about what happened. I don't know if you remember this. Actually, you're showing me Mickerson. Mickerson, for those of you who are listening, is Asher's, how would you describe Mickerson?
Friend.
He's Asher's friend. He's a one-of-a-kind stuffy, for lack of a better word, but he's a monster. And
because monsters need friends too.
Because they do. And we got Mickerson in Victoria, and we were on holiday with Asher's dad, my husband Darren's
particularly
parents.
That we mentioned him in this episode,
isn't it? So, do you remember that vacation much? It was probably 4 years ago when you were about 7.
Yeah, kind of. I remember the part where I saw Mickerson.
Yeah, it was love at first sight.
I had to do chores for a month.
Yes,
to pay for him.
That's true.
It was so worth it.
So the reason I wanted to talk about Victoria was we took your dad's parents, Grandma and Grandpa, to Victoria for a weekend. It was a really short trip. We were living in Seattle at the time, and we took them to Victoria for a weekend, and they had a lot of things they wanted to see, and we had a lot of things we wanted to do, and you wanted a lot of time to just chill out in the hotel.
With Mickerson.
No, this was even before you got Mickerson. But I remember we went out to dinner in the Stone Age. We went out to dinner to like a really nice restaurant, and you just kind of had a bit of a meltdown. You were done over the weekend. It was just too much. And so I took you from the restaurant, and we went and we found a bench outside, and you were still small enough that you sat on my lap. And we had a long talk, and we kind of realized that there's something you really need when you're on holiday. So do you remember what it was we discovered when we were talking on that bench in terms of what you needed?
That we need at least a day of just chilling out wherever we were. We can't just like go everywhere, do everything every single day.
Yeah, and specifically like
You can go everywhere and do everything nearly every single day.
Right, but it's that first day that was the big aha moment, that the day we arrived, you wanted to just chill. You wanted to get to the hotel or whatever and just chill. And that was a good to know. And it was also like, well, gosh, how do we make that work if we're only going away for a weekend, right? Because if you chill the first day, you've only really got one day. But we've tried to incorporate that. I remember that conversation so clearly. I think it was the first time Asher and I had a mature conversation where he told me exactly what he needed. I remember thinking, this is a person who knows what he needs. That's going to be super helpful. I'm going to need to access that insight more. But while I had this aha moment, we still had a long way to go to get to a point where vacations didn't involve one or more breakdowns on pretty much all of our parts. Power struggles, heaps of frustration, and the occasional public blowout. Our first trip post-Amsterdam move was to a small island off the coast of Holland called Texel, where we went for a weekend. I still have nightmares about that trip. Yeah. That was a rough one. Do you remember that trip?
Kind of.
Yeah, that was a dark time for our family.
Yeah.
And then we did a trip to Barcelona, which was pretty eye-opening because I think it was the first time we really realized that
I like steak.
We did discover that the meat in Barcelona is quite tasty. And, you know, I'm someone who wants to see and do everything, especially in a city like Barcelona where there's so many cool museums and the shopping and the food. And you really wanted to make sure that we built in time to just chill in the apartment. And we learned that when we pushed you too far and we didn't give you that.
Then I got kind of annoyed.
Yeah, that's a serious understatement.
Kind of annoyed.
We had some pretty rough days during that trip.
Slightly frustrated.
Slightly, more than slightly frustrated. So, what we did for our next really big trip, which was probably a year later that we really started to get our act together, we started incorporating some of the things we've done in homeschool in terms of coming up with a plan and talking with you about what your expectations were. Because what is one of your biggest kind of triggers, things that throws you off?
Yeah, when my expectations aren't being met.
Right, when you have something in mind and then it doesn't work out that way.
It's like me thinking, okay, so this is going to happen and this is going to happen. That's great, I like that. And it's like, wait, what? I thought that was supposed to happen. It's like, no, we changed it.
Yeah, and that doesn't fly with you, right?
Yeah.
That's tough. I decided that I was going to meltdown-proof our next trip. I figured that if we got clear on our expectations ahead of time and then came up with a plan for how those expectations could be met, then we'd be golden. Our first smooth sailing vacation. I started creating printouts. The first one is that I came up with this family goals worksheet. I'm really big into worksheets, right? There's a lot of worksheeting and paperwork in this house, but I thought it was important that we filled this out before we went in. Actually, we're looking at a copy of it right here, and it only has mine filled out. I don't know if you and Dad got around to it. But the plan was that we would each write down our goals for the trip. And so I wrote, have a peaceful trip where we all work well as a family, no yelling, etc., see a lot of beautiful architecture, and spend a little alone time, because I need some of that too when we're on vacation. So this was the first thing we did, was fill out our family goals. In case you're interested, I will share the template on the show notes if you want to check it out. But while the vacation goal worksheet was good information to have, the one I was really excited about was called the Asher Concerns Worksheet. I based it on the collaborative problem-solving model that we use, in which we try to identify ahead of time what might be hard in a situation and then brainstorm solutions. That way he doesn't perseverate on it and get anxious and bring that stressful energy into the situation, which in this case is our holiday. Can you walk us through, if you can read my writing, what some of your concerns were and what our solutions were?
Well, we had a concern that we'd be jet lagged.
Yeah, and that was one of your concerns, jet lagged. And so as I explained to you, it's a super short trip. And then I said that we would be staying on our regular time schedule. But that was a good one to know, because I wouldn't have known that was an issue for you, or that was something you were concerned about until you said it. And then as soon as I said, oh, there is no time difference, we won't be jet lagged.
And I was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was instant relief. So what's another one of your concerns that you had for this trip?
That I'd be really cold while we were there, because it was kind of cold.
More specifically, it says butt frozen on day trips, walking around.
Yeah, I freeze my butt off.
Right. And you really are someone who does not like to be cold.
Yeah.
I'm with you on that, so I totally get that. And the solution we wrote down was, well, first I let you know that it was warmer.
Nobody who isn't warm is going to like to be cold.
That's true. Some people dislike it more than others, right? I know that for you, walking around is already hard, but if you add that extra piece of discomfort of being too cold, then it can kind of ruin a day. So what we talked about was, I explained that it's warmer, so it shouldn't be a problem. Then I wrote down layers. We'll leave, I can't read my writing either, but that we would have a lot of layers on and we'll shed them if we get too warm. And that if we're feeling cold, we would get some hot chocolate.
Yes.
So we kind of dealt with that concern. There's two more on here. Let's go through them.
So I wouldn't have enough time to chill.
To chill in the pool specifically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a 1 hour long swim guaranteed.
Right. We said
ideally 30 minutes.
Right. So we said if we're staying in a place with a pool, we guarantee you an hour of pool time each day that we're there.
Which is awesome.
Which was awesome, and that totally worked. And then your last concern was that you wouldn't have enough time hanging out with your dad.
Yeah.
Who at the time was working
a lot
and didn't have a lot of free time. So our solution, we talked about that Dad would not be working and that the two of you would be guaranteed some screen time together, because that's how you guys like to bond a lot, is doing screen time. So you were guaranteed some screen time.
Really cool mod that I won't mention because we're anonymous when we posted it.
We will not discuss the anonymous awesome mod that you guys created.
We'll just say that we recommend the redacted mod for Minecraft.
We'll talk about that in another episode if you want to come out and share that. We'll be right back after this quick break. Darren and I are prepping for a big move at the moment, so we are fully leaning into any and everything that simplifies things, and that absolutely includes meal times. At a time when my executive functioning skills are being pushed to the limit, even planning and executing dinner for our family these days can feel like a really big lift. That's why I'm especially grateful for Green Chef, a meal service that offers pre-measured and prepped ingredients to my door. Each box is packed with foods you can feel good about, like whole fruits and vegetables, plus lean protein and whole grain options. In fact, one of the things I love most about Green Chef is that they offer options that prioritize gut and brain health, with science-backed recipes that feature ingredients like fiber, antioxidants, and omega-3 fatty acids. During this time of lots of stress, it feels really grounding to know we're supporting ourselves nutritionally. I will take all the support I can get. And Green Chef doesn't just cover dinner recipes. I can add high-quality breakfasts, lunches, and snacks to my weekly box from Green Market. Green Chef has a special offer for Tilt listeners. Go to greenchef.com/tilt50 and use code TILT50 to get 50% off plus 20% off your next 2 months. That's 50% off plus 20% off your next 2 months when you use the code TILT50 at greenchef.com/tilt50. Green Chef, the #1 meal kit for eating well. Maybe I've watched too many seasons of The Amazing Race, but every time I have to go somewhere on the subway, I treat it like a competition. It's all about making the right gut decisions about which route will get me there the fastest. Sometimes those decisions get me where I'm going early, and other times my gambles don't really pay off. Probiotics can't help with most gut decisions, but if your gut needs a little support, Ritual has your back. Their Symbiotic Plus, a 3-in-1 supplement, has clinically studied prebiotics, probiotics, and a postbiotic to support a balanced gut microbiome. I've been using Symbiotic Plus for about 6 months now, and it's become a core part of my morning routine. I take the mini capsule every morning while making my way through my inbox, whether I'm at home or I'm on the road, because it doesn't need to be refrigerated. And the capsule itself is delayed released, which helps it survive the harsh conditions of the upper GI tract for delivery to the colon, and that's exactly where we want it to go. Ritual invested in a study modeling the human colon, which showed that Symbiotic Plus significantly increased microbial diversity and the growth of beneficial bacteria. There's no more shame in your gut game. Symbiotic Plus and Ritual are here to celebrate, not hide your insides. Get 25% off your first month for a limited time at ritual.com/tilt. Start Ritual or add Symbiotic Plus to your subscription today. That's ritual.com/tilt for 25% off. So, all right, so that's the second piece. So before the trip, we went through all your concerns, and that was a really great conversation because I would have had no idea that these were things that could have caused you stress or anxiety during the trip. And because we came up with a solution ahead of time, they were not an issue on the trip. Do you remember? This all went really smoothly. This worksheet definitely made a difference on this trip and for future trips. Because one of the things I've learned about Asher over the years, and I'm sure this is true about your own kids as well, is that no matter how strange or irrational or unexpected or, in our mind, nonsensical his negative reaction or difficult behavior might be, there is always an underlying reason. He's not just being difficult for the sake of being difficult. There's always something else going on that's triggering that response. So the Asher Concerns worksheet helped problem solve around a lot of those underlying reasons and solve them before they even became an issue. Mostly. So the last thing that we had that we actually used on the trip every day was like a daily planner. And so every night we would fill this out together. And the top part, and I will post this on the website for people to see, the top part has a big section for our plan for the day. So whether we were doing a tour or we were going to go to a market for lunch or whatever we were doing, that would be written down so that you knew the night before what we were doing.
Yeah.
And then do you want to walk us through what these other parts are?
So first we write down the time we leave our hotel.
Right. So you knew what time we had to be out the door because sometimes it's time sensitive, right? What we're doing. We can't miss a train or something.
Then we also wrote down the time that we were going to return.
Right. So you knew about when we would be back. So how long in total we'd be out for the day. Yep. What's next?
Then we had when I would have my screen time with Dad.
That's right. We wanted you to know that that was definitely going to happen. And not only was it definitely going to happen, but here's around when it's going to happen.
And then we also have when I'll get to swim. And then we also have any special requests or comments.
That's correct. We would go through this every night, and then we would all actually sign it. So we like to put things not only in writing, but we seal it with a signature.
Asher. Ellis, fast in the third.
So here's what I will say about this trip. Because we did all this prep work, I was convinced that we were going to go on this vacation and it was going to be smooth with not one meltdown, no problems, easy peasy lemon squeezy the whole time.
A few meltdowns.
Yeah, it didn't work out that way. We did have a few meltdowns, and not just you, by the way. But not as many as usual. It definitely was a much smoother trip, and I feel it was like the start of a new era of vacations. Right?
The vacation era.
Ah, yes, the vacation era. So we used those forms for the next year or so, but as time has gone by and Asher's matured and we've shifted the types of vacations we were doing from city museum sightseeing kind of things to family, nature, adventure kinds of things, we've gotten kind of into a new phase of, dare I say, peace and tranquility on our family trips. But though we don't do the problem-solving worksheets anymore, we still do a lot of work around schedules and planning. I think one of the biggest game changers is our day of departure planner or schedule that we make, because even, first of all, you're excited to travel now. Like in the mornings, if we have an early flight, you get up and you're ready.
Yeah.
However, there's always stress at that last minute because like we can't miss a flight. So whenever we have that,
It's like the Amazing Race.
it is like the Amazing Race. Whenever we have that added stressor of time, I get more anxious. Your dad gets more anxious. And then I think you feed off of our energy. And then all of a sudden you decide you need something in that moment. And the taxi's there and it just becomes this, it becomes really stressful.
I need Bickerson.
And I don't know that we left for the airport in years without a lot of just, some yelling, some stress, some really kind of not great energy going on. So you want to explain what we do now in terms of on our whiteboard?
Yeah, we take a whiteboard and we write down our departure schedule. So we usually include when we wake up, when we get ready to go, when we depart, when we arrive at the airport, when we have to get on the flight, and then when we arrive in our destination.
Yeah, we always start with the time our flight leaves. We write that on the bottom of the whiteboard, and then we backtrack. If our flight leaves at this time, what time do we need to be at the airport?
Yeah.
If we need to be at the airport by then, what time do we have to leave the apartment? If we have to leave the apartment, what time do we need to be putting shoes on? And we've learned to leave like 15 minutes for shoes and coats because that's where things can get really sluggish. I think I'm not going to be alone here, and people listening to the podcast who feel that sometimes it's it's putting on shoes and coats can sometimes take like an hour. So having this schedule has really helped and building in a lot of time. And I will also show a picture of one of our whiteboards but that changed everything.
Nobody listening to this podcast can imagine a whiteboard.
I will share the whiteboard with our departure plan. Mm-hmm. We also, before we go, I know now to really I show you lots of websites or pictures of the kinds of things that we're going to be doing.
Yeah. Like, for example, we went ziplining, so we went to, the ziplining website, and we watched videos of people ziplining until we got really jealous. And
yeah, I did show you those videos, and they got you very excited, too, which I knew was going to be motivating for you to have a good trip. But for you to even see images of this is the room, this is the hotel we're staying in, this is the Airbnb apartment we're renting, you'll have your own room. Like, as much as I can do to provide you with information ahead of time so there aren't a lot of surprises. And that's another thing that's really helpful. Just kind of walk through it ahead of time. We'll be right back after this quick break. Hey there, it's Debbie. I love making this show and sharing conversations about how to support our awesome neurodivergent kids. I've seen how even one little insight from an interview can spark a big shift in daily life. But I know that raising complex kids can be messy and lonely. And just when we think we figured it out, something comes up that boots us right back to feeling overwhelmed and stuck. That's why I've poured everything into creating a way for parents like us navigating complex parenting journeys to join together and chart a path that feels positive, hopeful, and doable. It's the brand new Differently Wired Club experience. In the club, you'll get personal support from me and other seasoned parent coaches, 6 live calls every month where you can connect and get your personal questions answered, the opportunity to learn directly from authors and experts like I have on this show, monthly themes for getting specific and tactical, an exclusive private podcast feed, and the best, most generous community of parents. Seriously, these folks show up for themselves and each other, and that right there is really everything, because it's a daily reminder that we're not alone. Our kids aren't broken, and we have totally got this. The recently rebooted Differently Wired Club is on a brand new platform with its very own iOS and Android app. It is such a great space. However you learn, whatever your style, no matter the ages, genders, and neurodivergent profile of your children, the Differently Wired Club can help you cultivate the positive shifts you're hoping for. Join us today by going to tiltparenting.com/club. That's tiltparenting.com/club. I hope to see you on the inside.
Lynn, this time of year, parenting can be such a flusterclux.
You've come to the right place. I'm Lynn Lyons, and I've been treating anxious families for over 30 years.
I'm Lynn's sister-in-law and co-host Robin Hudson.
Join us for Flusterclux, a podcast for parents who worry.
Wait, that's everybody.
Yeah, these last few years have felt like one long anxiety attack for so many.
Why do you think parents are always surprised that a podcast about anxiety relates to them, even if no one in their house has an anxiety disorder?
Well, worry is human. Everyone does it. And anxiety shows up when we face uncertainty.
All the parenting tips you've taught me have been essential.
I love to break it down into skills we need to manage worry in our families.
We've covered so many topics: depression, burnout, meltdowns, perfectionism.
Don't forget scary mothers-in-law.
Right, but of course that's not my mother-in-law.
Because that's my mother.
And a listener.
As a psychotherapist, I like to teach parents and kids how to respond to everyday moments in healthy ways.
Managing anxiety really can be taught.
It really can. And I'll even tell you what to say.
We talk about serious stuff, but without being too serious.
Anxiety wants everything serious. Anxiety doesn't stand a chance when we're laughing, even about the tough stuff.
I also am someone who makes pretty detailed schedules. Maybe listeners are starting to realize that about me. I like my charts and graphs and schedules and color-coded things, but I make a detailed schedule of the entire trip, and I walk through that with you ahead of time, generally more than once, so that you start getting in your head, this is what we're going to be doing. We're going to these places. These are going to be long days in the car. These are going to be really packed days. And these are days that we're going to chill out so that you can set your expectations. So then what's the last thing that we do that really helped us, especially on this most recent trip?
Well, over dinner, we usually talk through what we're going to do the next day. So we all know what we're going to do once we wake up. Kind of like the whiteboard thing.
So I'm curious to know because there a lot of families have these same kind of challenges, and travel can be stressful for many, many families and for kids whose routines are thrown off. So I'm wondering, what do you think has worked the best for you? Because I'm sure you've noticed vacations are different for you now too. What has helped you the most?
I think that all the planning, it's very helpful to know what's going to happen.
Why is that so helpful for you?
I just like knowing what's going to happen because it means I can prepare for it ahead of time. I can set all my expectations and not be wrong.
Do you think about it when you go to bed that night? Do you imagine what's going to happen, or how does it work?
I kind of think about what it's going to be like and set my expectations. And then
there was one day in our last trip where I really ran you guys ragged. I walked you all over because...
Oh, yeah, the one where we did the wall tour.
We did the wall tour, and then I made you take a boat to an island.
And then walk all over the island. We had to circumnavigate the whole planet.
And then we took a cable car up to the top of a mountain, and I made you guys hike down the mountain.
Oh, it was terrible. But it was so satisfying once we finished it.
But how did you get through that day? Because that was not an Asher kind of a day.
I'm not sure.
Was it because you knew it was really important to me, or because I told you the night before, so you just kind of bucked up and went with it?
It was because I knew that was the plan. We just had to get through climbing, and then the next day we'd be on a nice gentle boat tour and not moving a muscle.
We moved a few muscles, but...
only a few of them.
I'm thinking of something else that we do that helps. It's a little ice cream treat that we indulged in.
Oh, yeah. Gelato.
Yeah, it's amazing how a little gelato can be motivating.
A strong motivator.
At the right time.
It's like, do you want power of the entire planet or gelato? Gelato.
No, but that is something that I don't know that I would call it bribery, but a little dangling a little gelato as a reward at the end of a long hike or a long walk or something.
Yeah.
For you is a big motivator. Can you think of any other strategies that have helped? Because you're such a good traveler now. You're a fantastic traveler. What are some things that you do personally that you think make travel fun for you?
Well, I help decide on what we're going to do.
Yeah, you're bringing up a good point. We loop you into...
Yeah, it's not like, okay, today we're doing this, and then tomorrow we're doing this, and then the day after that we're doing that. But I don't want to do that. Too bad. Because this is vacation.
You will have fun.
Yeah, and you'll like it.
Yeah, we loop you in. We try to give you options, not all the time. And some days are more days where your dad or I get to call the shots, and some days are more focused on your interests. And that has really helped, because then when you have those things that really engage you, it makes you more flexible and more easygoing about the things that your dad and I really want to do, even if they're not so very interesting to you, right?
Right.
So
everyone gets to do what they want. Partially. It's a lot of compromise. Yeah.
What else has really helped you survive or get through vacations with
Food?
Say more.
Well, we usually go to new restaurants and eat loads of food. Yummy steaks.
So you get excited about the culinary experience.
Yeah.
You know what else we did on this trip, which was interesting, was you and I went for a run every morning.
Yeah, that was loads of fun.
Do you think that helped?
Yeah, it's awesome.
Why do you think that helped for the vacation to go smoother?
It's kind of calming.
You also got to see things you wouldn't have normally seen. And what's the most important thing for you when you're traveling that you need to have that kind of helps keep you happy?
Well, rest time. We usually just need to chill for a bit.
And what do you do during your chill time?
I don't know. Play things on the iPad, read, but only for a bit. I mean, the iPad. I read for a while. Sometimes I rest with Nickerson.
So all those things you think help it go more smoothly? Okay. All right. Well, any other thoughts about vacation? Any advice for other parents, or for me for that matter, on things that could help vacations go even more smoothly?
Use some sandpaper.
Oh my. So, there you have it, a potpourri of travel strategies that have transformed our vacations from stressful to not quite as stressful to mostly awesome and connecting for our family. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Tilt Parenting Podcast. Hopefully you took away something from our conversation that you can use in your own world to help family holidays go more smoothly. And if you want to get a closer look at all the worksheets we mentioned, I'll include downloadable PDFs of everything on the show notes for this episode, which you can find online at tiltparenting.com/session15. For a list of all the podcast episodes, visit tiltparenting.com/podcast. Also, we've recently begun posting edited transcriptions of previous episodes on the Tilt blog after hearing from members of the Tilt community that they'd like to read the interviews and conversations. Lastly, if you liked this episode, and if you haven't already subscribed on iTunes, I invite you to do that. And if you are subscribed but haven't left us an honest review, I invite you to do that as well. Getting more reviews and subscribers is the best way for us to grow and connect with our audience of parents raising differently wired kids. Thanks again for tuning in, and for more information on the Tilt Revolution, to sign up for our community and learn more, visit www.tiltparenting.com.
If you're a parent, I invite you to join us at the Mindful Mama podcast, where it's all about becoming a less irritable, more joyful parent. With sometimes hilarious and always thought-provoking experts and friends, at Mindful Mama, we know that you cannot give what you do not have. And when you have calm and peace within, then you can give it to your children. I'm Hunter Clark Fields, and I can't wait to see you there. Listen in to the Mindful Mama podcast.